Now, many people are familiar with the Broadway musical, Fiddler on the Roof. Very touching story about a devout, middle-aged Jewish man named Tevye and his wife Golda, Golda. They lived in Russia in a small town called Anatevka. The play takes place at the beginning of the 20th century when the Tsar, Nicholas, was still in power. Their lives are very hard, but filled with devotion. A complicating factor is that they have 5 daughters. Finding proper matches for their daughters is a major theme in the musical. This is in a community in which they have arranged marriages by the parents. And it's complicated because Tevye's own daughters want to follow their hearts and not the wishes of their parents. In other words, they fall in love with young men who are not exactly suitable matches. And Tevye and Golda themselves are in an arranged marriage. Romantic love was not a factor in their arrangement, but the influence of his daughters has Tevye wondering. He's seeing something he's never seen before. And he's seeing change come in ways that he's quite confused about. And so he asks Golda this provocative but basic question. Golda, do you love me?
Do I what?
He repeats the emotion-filled question. Do you love me?
Maybe you ought to go inside and lie down. Perhaps it's indigestion.
But he won't let it go, and he says, Golda, I'm asking you a question. Do you love me?
You're a fool.
I know, but do you love me?
Do I love you? For 25 years, I've washed your clothes, cooked your meals, cleaned your house, given you children, milked the cow. After 25 years, why talk about love right now?
But Tevye keeps going. He's got to know. He reminds her that the first day they met was their wedding day. And he was scared. And he said, but my father and my mother said we would learn to love each other. And right then he's asking his wife, Golda, do you love me?
I'm your wife.
I know. But do you love me?
I suppose I do love you.
And I suppose I love you too. And they take each other's hands and look out into the audience and say, after
25 years, it really doesn't matter. But it's nice to know.
A touching and humorous moment. Now, people who've been married for a long time can relate. One man said to me, I don't mind being divorced, but I'd much rather be a widower. No bitterness there. See, the reason this is important is that we're all constantly seeking love. We need love. We want love. We pursue love. But love can be elusive. It's as powerful as a freight train and has the power to destroy lives instantaneously. And going way back, I mean way back, it was our delight in high school to have the precious memories of the desire to love and to be loved. You remember your first crush? Life was grand. Life was beautiful. Life was worth living. All because of that very first kiss. Tradition has it that June is the month of weddings. Oddly enough, for divorces as well. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. People getting married in church or fellowship or synagogue or the temple or city hall. Then there's the expensive cost for that reception. To honor the bride and groom and their families, and the limos and the tuxedos to rent. Gowns could run you $50,000, What's Vera Wang selling them for these days? And how big of a diamond ring would be worthy to wear for the festive occasion? All I could say is the De Beers family down in South Africa loves you more than I could ever say. In my ministry, I've counseled couples who were intent on being married. They'd come in all giddy and lovey-dovey and star-gazed. And they're ready for the step they're about to take, only to find out a few months later that it was over. And what used to be love that they had for each other turns to hate. Now, I don't understand it, even though I've been married and I've been divorced. Now, Tevye was right. Things are changing and changing fast. And people are suggesting that when a couple decides to divorce, the only people that cheer, that benefit from their divorce, are the lawyers. I mean, years ago, I watched something called The War of the Roses. Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. Now, if you want to see how diabolical a couple can be against each other because they refuse to compromise, they would not have an amicable divorce. And the movie is really, really quite good. Danny DeVito is one of the lawyers raking in dough for the due process of finalizing their divorce. But before that, they practically put a hit out on each other so they could solve their hatred of being married to each other once and for all. Everyone gets hurt in a divorce. The husband, the wife, the children, grandparents, cousins, the extended family, everybody gets hurt. And somebody suggested, not so flippantly, that maybe there ought to be a 5 to 10 year limit on marriage, instead of lifetime. Now, I doubt that is going to go anywhere. But today, marriage as we know it as an institution is under siege. And of all the marriages I've officiated, most of them have ended in divorce. There are exceptions. I remember a couple that went to the Holy Land with me, and they asked me to officiate at their reunion and rededication of vows in, of all places, Cana of Galilee, where Jesus turned the water into wine. Well, it was a great honor for me. And if that one goes bust, you can always try again. Lots of people marry lots of times. The month of June kicks off another thing that I think is worth noting, Gay Pride Month. Now, I'm very proud that we live in a country, finally, that allows people to marry other people that they love, no matter what. I remember that day, June 21st, 2015. The vote came in from the Supreme Court of the United States, 5-4, in favor of marriage equality. And people who were gay could have the same marriage as people who were straight. It was a historic day for many people, including myself. Imagine, gay people can now be as happy or miserable as straight couples. Now, even Justice Antonin Scalia, the conservative justice of the bench, said the Constitution of the United States protects every person, and they're entitled to due process. Now, you could love people you never thought you could love, and even gay people can marry gay people. I went to a synagogue one time. I was opening for a dear friend of mine, Reverend Barry Silver, who has passed on all too early. And it was a Friday evening Shabbat service with a dear friend of mine. And the best I could, I got up there. They said, "You better go up there. He's not here yet." Well, what do you want me to say? Don't just say anything. Just speak. Just keep it going, because they're going to leave if you don't. Well, okay, so something came to my mind. I thought it was a safe environment, so I said, I don't know if any of you know this, but I'm a gay man who happens also to be a minister. I just thought I would share that with you because I didn't know if you knew it now and then. Well, I believe now you all know it. And wouldn't you know, there's a couple in the back. She asked the husband to repeat it, and they both were kind of hard of hearing, and they were both like yelling at each other, kind of. "What did he say, Harry?" To which Harry said to her loudly, "He said he didn't know how many people here knew that he was gay." I don't know if she heard him fully, but What do you mean he doesn't know if we know that he's gay? Audrey, he said, he just said he didn't know if we knew or not. And then she said loudly, well, we know now, right? Well, the audience laughed. And for this Christian minister, it was not a prelude for the congregation of the rabbi. Lucky he came on time. We have transgender people in our midst. And to hear our elected representatives in Washington put their spin on it, transgendered people are the enemies of upstanding citizens. So DEI and many groups aren't even recognized anymore. Our answer to such mean-spirited prejudice lies in our diplomacy and in our restraint. This attack on people who have every right to determine what they wish to do with their bodies is the same old political fear-mongering that we're familiar with. Juniper Blessing was stabbed 40 times in Seattle while she was a student at Washington University. I stand before you a broken man because I had every intention of getting married, this time to another man. I'll never know what that would have been like because my intended died. And his name was Sebastian. And we were in a relationship for about 5 years. And he died so young of diabetes and neuropathy. No question of how much I loved him. One thing for sure that I've learned from that experience, if you think it's easier to be gay in this time that we're living rather than it was years ago, think again. There are people today who are actively trying to roll back marriage equality, render past gay marriages null and void, and go back in the dark ages, which seems everyone was ratting everyone out, that they even suspected was gay. Change is not altogether a good thing. You have to make it a good thing. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was gutted, so now we're returning to redistrict gerrymandering and shenanigans. Once again, people without a voice are being muffled. Had he lived, I wonder what Congressman John Lewis would have said about the current mean-spirited rollback of so many cherished protections that they fought with their lives to achieve. Yes, in 1973, the Supreme Court of the United States gave rights and privileges mostly to women of poverty and of color with Roe v. Wade. But almost 50 years later, they took those rights and privileges back. Can you imagine how Dred Scott felt when he went into the Supreme Court to hear his case because he had escaped into the free areas, only to hear that the Supreme Court said that a slave could be property that their southern owner could come up to the north and claim as their own. But Pope Leo unbelievably extended an apology centuries overdue for what was done to slaves. Yet this may be overdue, but as Dr. King reminds us, it's always the right time to do the right thing. Can anyone explain to me why we cannot love immigrants without documentation? Every one of those people who are locked up are asking us, do you love me? And last week we saw the governor of the state of New Jersey at a detention center being denied entrance. She had heard reports that pregnant women were not getting medical care, that adults were being jammed into small quarters with teenagers and even younger children. The report said there were no privacy areas for showers or going to the bathroom. The food was disgusting and roaches were running all over the place. The allegations stated that people arrested by ICE received no due process and had no legal counsel. Let that sink in. No legal counsel. And many of those people arrested were not guilty of any crime. They had rights to be here, but were arrested anyway. Why is that, considering a person not in violation of any laws should be arrested, right? I'm glad you asked. Because every day a person is held in those detention centers across America, the government pays for them to be there. The governor of the state of New Jersey, hosting their detention, wanted to see if any of those allegations were true. She wanted to see if these people being held captive were indeed living in uninhabitable conditions or not. But she was not allowed in. So how do we answer when we are asked the question, do you love me? No human being is illegal. Aren't we Unitarian Universalists? Don't we believe in the inherent worth of every person? Don't we believe in the search for truth? And aren't we accepting of people, whatever conditions they might be? And what about justice and compassion while we let those 7 principles be our God? Do we believe that it is wrong to treat people like this? Do we see people as this is our family? No, we don't, not by a long shot. One main question for me is whether this lack of love we're experiencing is what we want in our country. Do we vote for more rage, more instability, more reckless talk about bombings and war? Did we vote for more gasoline to be poured on an already dangerous world? Because this is not strength. This is not leadership. And this sure as hell is not peace through strength. Now, you may have voted for tougher borders and lower grocery prices and lower gas prices and representatives that'll fight for ordinary Americans. Did you get any of those things? Or deep down, are you feeling bamboozled? Is this, in fact, something different? Is this disorder dressed up as toughness? Is this impulsiveness sold as patriotism? Is this ego masquerading as courage? How much more will we excuse? How much more chaos will we call strategy? How much more cruelty will we call honesty? How much more recklessness will we call strength? When do we finally say enough is enough? When you hurt the human family, you're hurting me. You don't have to abandon your values to admit that you're betrayed. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that the whole country is headed into a dangerous dark hole. America today needs leaders with character, with wisdom, with discipline, and self-control. Not constant retribution and outrage, not endless division and not this. Is this our country anymore? Are we a nation split down the middle between the haves and the been-hads, or the haves and the have-yachts? Because if this is not what you voted for, then it's time to speak up and say so. Silence is complicity. Things don't just get better on their own. I've learned that. You got to fight for what you believe. Character still matters. Arresting immigrants to fulfill quotas is not love. It's pure sickness. No human being is illegal. And I must say to these same people who we feel love for, these people are wallowing and they are languishing in despair in narrow jail cells because they are dark-skinned, because they are undocumented, because they are being scapegoated, and because they feel lost. Let me assure you, to those people that can't even hear me, help is on the way. The strength of how much we love you is right now and right here. We struggle with you. We pray with you. We love you. We suffer with you. And we go to jail with you. We stand up for freedom with you. Your problems are our problems. Your successes are our successes. Because your destiny is tied up in our destiny. We cannot walk alone. And I assure you, nobody's going to turn us around. We're all bound, as Dr. King has said, into a network of mutuality. And right now, we are called to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. Thank you, Milo.